I would like to welcome you to my channel. My name is Denise, also known as That Middle-Aged Lady. You will have to excuse my fuzzy microphone, just in case you happen to notice it. I live in the country, but on a busy main road, and so when the traffic goes by doing 55, 60 miles an hour, it can get quite loud, especially if it's a motorcycle or a truck. And so I had to go out and get a noise reduction filter for my microphone that just happens to resemble a big pom-pom. So hopefully it will do its job well of filtering out the sound of the traffic, but just in case it happens to come through anyways, I do apologize for that. On top of that, I also can hear my dog outside barking. I've got my cat meowing at the door trying to get in, and then I can hear my neighbor's rooster crowing. And so I guess all I can say is E-I-E-I-O. And so in today's video, I wanted to talk about something that can happen to our skin as we begin to go through menopause, and especially once we reach that postmenopausal stage, which is where I'm in. I have been postmenopausal for about 4 years now. And so I've always been aware of the most obvious signs of menopause being those hot flashes, the night sweats, the mood swings, vaginal dryness, and then irregular periods. And then starting at the age of 12, I had a mother who began to drill it in my head how important it was to take good care of my skin so that as I began to age, I wouldn't get a face full of wrinkles. And then every Christmas, starting at the age of 12, she also would buy me an expensive jar of face cream and then would once again reiterate how important it was to keep my face moisturized so that as I began to age, once again, I wouldn't get a face full of wrinkles. And so I've always been aware of those two things. But what I was not aware of is as we begin to go through menopause, and especially once we reach that postmenopausal stage, is that our skin can also get sensitive. And so how I discovered this was back about 6 months ago. I started to break out in what I thought was just some postmenopausal acne. It stayed pretty much in this region right here on my chin, so underneath my lip and then in this general area. And it presented itself as just some red solid bumps. They were a little bit sensitive to touch, but they never really did take on the look of a pimple in the sense that it never got a head on it that you could pop or any blackheads. And then as it began to go away, it would dry up and then my skin would get flaky in that area, which is kind of the stage that it's in right now. And just as I thought it was going away, it would end up coming back full force again. And so I did take a picture of it when it was kind of in its middle stage, so not at its worst, but not at its best either. It's not exactly the most flattering picture, but here is what it looked like. And so after about 3 months, when it wasn't looking like it was going to go away, I was starting to get concerned that it might be skin cancer. And so I made an appointment with my dermatologist, and that is when she said she believed I had a condition called perioral dermatitis. And so perioral dermatitis almost always shows up on the face, usually in the chin region. It can present itself as these solid red bumps that can be tender at the touch, and they can also be filled with pus. And then as they begin to go away, your skin can get flaky in that area, and then you can continue to have flare-ups for weeks and sometimes even months. And so she ended up prescribing a cream for me that's also usually used for people who have a condition called rosacea. Rosacea also shows up on the face and is usually red blotches. But because this perioral dermatitis can sometimes turn into rosacea, she just kind of wanted to cover both bases. Unfortunately, the cream ended up irritating that quite badly, and so I stopped using it. And at this point, I'm just hoping that eventually it's just going to go away on its own. It still is there a little bit. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little red bump there and a little bit of dryness still, but it's not nearly as bad as it was when I first got it. And then about 2 months ago, I was outside and I was about to go sit on my deck, and I have some hedges that I have so that you can't see my deck from the main road, and sometimes I'll cut through them as a little shortcut. And as I did, I felt a little bit of stinging on my cheek and my arm where the hedge had brushed up against me. Really didn't think anything about it. And then the next day, I noticed that I was starting to get a rash in both of those areas. And so I just kind of thought, okay, I'll wait and see where this is going. And it started to almost look like a poison ivy rash, something I've had many times. But poison ivy at some point tends to weep, whereas this didn't. And so after about 2 weeks, when it just looked like it wasn't getting any better, once again, I headed back to the dermatologist. And this time she told me I had a condition called contact dermatitis. Unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of that, but contact dermatitis is when your skin comes in contact with some type of allergen, whether it's a chemical, it can be a bug or an insect, it could be pet dander, or it could be a plant. And so when your skin comes in contact with that, it can cause an irritation and a rash. And so normally she would prescribe a steroid cream to help with that, but because that might aggravate my perioral dermatitis, she decided just to tell me to use calamine lotion instead. And so after about 2 weeks, it finally got better, but it took an awful long time. And then I thought, okay, hopefully that's it. I couldn't understand why I was getting, all these things all of a sudden on my skin. But then about a month ago, I was out in my garage, cleaning out my garage, getting it ready for winter, when I went to go pick up a nightstand to move it from one section to the other. And as I did, and the wood hit my forearm, in this section right here, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it's still got a little bit of a scar there, I felt this burning. And so at first I thought maybe I got stung by a bee, but when I didn't see a bee, and usually you've got that telltale sign of that little hive thing there, so I decided to come in the house and rinse it with some warm soapy water, and then a couple days later I ended up breaking out in another rash. And this time I did take a picture of that, and so this is what that looked like. And so I used the calamine lotion on that for about a week, hoping that it would get it better just like it did the previous rash, but this thing was not budging. It was not looking even the slightest bit better, even after using calamine for about a week. And so I decided to head back to the dermatologist yet again, and she said that, again, she believed it was some type of contact dermatitis, so whatever was on the nightstand seemed to irritate my skin, and so she just suggested continuing to use the calamine and see where it went. And it's been, a little over a month now. And although the bulk of the rash is gone, I still have the remnants of it there. It doesn't itch or it doesn't hurt anymore, but you can definitely still see it. And so I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be there or if it's ever going to go away. But after that, I started to get concerned that maybe something more might have been going on. And so I decided to make an appointment with my family care doctor to have a physical. I was due for one anyways, and then also to have my blood drawn to have her check all my blood work. And so when I went for the follow-up appointment, she said all of my blood work came back perfect, exactly as it should be. And then the physical didn't turn up anything out of concern either. And so we were trying to figure out what possibly could be causing some of this. And that was when I happened to mention to her that I was postmenopausal and had been postmenopausal for 4 years now. And I asked her if she thought, because of the hormone levels, if that could possibly have anything to do with it. And then that is when she explained, which I already kind of partially knew some of this anyways, that when we go through menopause, our estrogen levels begin to decline, and when that happens, so does the oil secretion in our skin, causing our skin to dry out, and then also the fat underneath our skin begins to diminish, therefore causing our skin to get thin. And because estrogen also plays a role in collagen production, collagen is what gives our skin its elasticity, so in other words, the stretchiness of it, and also our moisture. When estrogen declines, so does the collagen, once again causing our skin to become dry, and then we don't have quite as much elasticity anymore, and that is when we see the skin that sags, and then once again also the thinning of the skin. And then once we reach that postmenopausal age, and we've been in it for a few years, our estrogen levels really begin to decline until eventually they bottom out, and then they just stay at an all-time low level. And so when that happens, that is when we become more susceptible to things like osteoporosis and heart disease. And in my case is when my skin seemed to become hypersensitive. And so she absolutely did feel that there could be a correlation between the two. And so having been in postmenopause absolutely did not cause me to get the perioral dermatitis, nor did it cause me to get the contact dermatitis. But the fact that my skin was thinning and it was becoming sensitive absolutely played a role in it. You can kind of think of that in terms of if you went outside on a cold, rainy day without a coat or shoes on, and then a couple days later you got a cold, being outside without a coat and shoes on isn't what gave you the cold, but it very well could have brought your immune system down and made you more susceptible to catching that cold. And so this was basically the same concept. Even though being postmenopausal did not cause me to get these conditions, the fact that it was making my skin more thin and making it, in my case, hypersensitive, absolutely was making me more susceptible to getting these conditions. And so basically, at this point, all I can do is really be proactive and try to stay away from anything that I think might irritate my skin. I'm not sure if this is something that I'm going to have now for the rest of my life, or maybe once that estrogen kind of levels out, bottoms out, I guess you could say, that maybe it will get better. But in the meantime, I just have to be careful. So whenever I go outside, I just make sure and wear long sleeves. I also wear gloves whenever I can. And then needless to say, I'm not cutting through those hedges anymore. And I'm just trying to stay away from any kind of plants or anything that I think might irritate my skin. And so the reason that I wanted to do this video is because I never had any idea that once you went through menopause, and especially once you got to the postmenopausal stage, that your skin could become sensitive, or in my case, hypersensitive, and then you could be getting these different weird things popping up on your skin. And so I just wanted to share my story so that if there's any other postmenopausal women who might also be going through this, so that you can hear what I went through. And I would definitely recommend going to the doctor to have whatever you have going on diagnosed, whether it's your family care doctor or the dermatologist. I definitely don't want you to just take my word for it, since obviously I'm not sure what you have. But if you do have something similar to what I have, I would definitely mention to your doctor that you are postmenopausal, and then see if perhaps that might be playing a role in whatever you have going on as well. I wish that I would have known sooner that all of this could have been related to the postmenopausal stage, because I was really freaking myself out thinking I had something terribly wrong with me. And so my hope is that this video will at least shed some light on it for anybody else who might also be going through something similar. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them, and I'll be happy to answer anything that I can. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I will look forward to seeing you again next time.